You're listening to Forge Theater Labs,
a podcast devoted to exploring theater history. Where does that idea come from?
concepts in storytelling.
Is anything that original?
Isn't that just an assumption?
And the creation of theater from behind the scenes.
How do they even do that?
This is Forge Theater Labs.
History, innovation, perspective.
Welcome, everyone. I'm Josh Hsu, and this is Forge Theater Labs. I'm thrilled tonight to host a director's roundtable on craft, on process, and what happens between the scenes, which we've aptly titled Death by Transitions. Directors spend much of their time managing transitions. Sometimes those transitions happen on stage, moving an audience from one image, scene, or emotional state to another. And sometimes they happen in rehearsal rooms, design meetings, budget planning. We all think of transitions in many different ways, but transitions are ultimately a question of movement. How do we get from here to there? What do we carry forward from one scene to the next, and what do we leave behind? And how do we fill that space in between? Tonight, we'll explore how directors think about change, momentum, and collaboration. Whether we're discussing a 5-second blackout, a rehearsal process, a production concept, the same questions emerge. Who guides the transition? How do we know when it's working? And what does the transition reveal about the director making it? And so, with that in mind, I'm thrilled to introduce each of our directors this evening for our roundtable. First up is Sally Wood. Based in Portland, Maine, Sally Wood is a buffet-style artist whose work spans acting, directing, fight choreography, and arts education. A lecturer of theater at Bates College, she has developed a particular passion for a new play development. Her directing credits include Papermaker, Half-Light, and Saint Dad by Monica Wood, Veils by Tom Koch, Last Gas, Lovesick, and Not Quite Almost by John Cariani, and most recently, Like Flies by Clotter competition winner Maggie Kiernan. Hey, Sally.
Hey, it's so good to be here.
Great. We're going to do things a little bit out of order tonight while we have you. And so I thought I might ask you, our icebreaker for this evening, what's a theatrical transition you love, and what makes it memorable?
I love the story transitions. When basically the story keeps going, usually with characters that I haven't seen before. Like there's servant, the nursemaid, the whatever comes out, and then I get to sort of follow that story. And I just love that. I am such a sucker for it.
Same. I feel the same way. Like being able to sort of create a story within a story, I feel like is a level of inception that I think, lends itself to transitions. Next up, we have Nathan Gregory. Nathan Gregory recently directed the main premiere of Grand Horizons at Good Theater and previously helmed the acclaimed production of Dracula, A Comedy of Terrors. His directing and acting work has taken to theaters across the United States and internationally, including Actors Theatre of Louisville, Orlando Shakespeare Theatre, and the Coronet Theatre in London. Nathan holds a master's degree from the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. Upcoming projects include Little Shop of Horrors and Is He Dead at Good Theater. Welcome, Nathan.
Hi, thanks for having me, Josh.
Yeah, so glad you're here. I'm going to follow up with that same question. So what's a theatrical transition you love, and what makes it memorable?
Yeah, I like a jump cut, and this comes from actually the videos that I edit and stuff. I like a lot of transitions, but one of my favorite things is when you're able to just surprise with an incredibly quick transition of, oh, hey, we're doing this over here, and now we're on to the next thing before you can even, it's like a blink, and you've moved on to the next one. I really like that a lot. It's really fun.
What do you think it does for an audience, right, when you're able to jump cut like that?
It is surprising, and it adds pace, not even like keeping the pace. It kind of thrusts the action forward even quicker if you can do it well. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not the easiest thing to do in theater, but if you
not
can
at all,
pull it
not
off,
at
it's
all.
fun.
If only we had a way to frame the camera, frame the audience the same way we can frame a camera, right? Or an editing button where we just jump cut. Next up, we have Michael Dix Thomas. Michael Dix Thomas is an actor, director, educator, and arts leader whose work spans classical theater, regional theater, higher education, and community engagement. His career has included collaborations with organizations throughout New England and beyond, and he recently stepped into the role of Director of Education and Community Engagement at Ogunquit Playhouse. Welcome, Michael.
Hey, everybody.
Well, Mike, let's talk about your favorite transition. What is a theatrical transition you love?
Yeah, great. I feel like so much of my experience and so much of my work has been like how I learned to do this was low budget, low resources. We're figuring it out. We're telling the story with bodies in a space. And so whenever I rarely get to do this, but whenever I get to see like spectacle on stage and really get blown away, I get really excited about it. And I think about like the first time I can't remember when this was, but the first time I saw the trick of like, let's flash bright lights at the audience so that they can't see what we're doing for a split second. And so we can completely transform something. And this feels really connected to what Nathan was just saying, but that idea of being able to surprise the audience, because what's so cool and special about what we do is we're all in the same room the whole time, right? But when we can pull like a magic trick and really transform something, I think that's really effective. I think that's really fun. So that's where my head went.
Absolutely. I'm hearing from everyone sort of three themes sort of that are coming to sort of out of your discussions about favorite transitions. The first is rhythm, right? We have that with jump cuts, right? Sort of designing the pace of the discussion, also sort of refocusing someone's attention by shining bright lights. I would like to say that that is one of my favorite transitions that I've done in the past, because I feel like it forces the audience to step out for a moment before re-engaging. And then, of course, sort of imbuing meaning into that conversation, as you sort of pointed out, Sally, with sort of inventing a sub-story within an existing framework. And I love how it sort of reveals how we think as directors. And so I thought I'd sort of pivot and talk about, instead of the things you love, like maybe talk about things that we perhaps feel like maybe need a little bit more work. And so I want to sort of throw this out there. What's your relationship to blackouts right now? And anyone can take this question.
I've been trying not to use them personally, you know. Sometimes you really need it, you know, but even then the question is, how can you fill it? You know, as long as you're not, you never want the play, the energy to stop, right? You don't want to give the audience time to like catch up and think of what's going on. So it's crazy because I'm having thoughts here where I'm almost saying like, you don't want the audience to know that to get out of the illusion of the actors making this thing. Like sometimes, yeah, if you're playing around with some really edgy, weird theater, you may want to be in a blackout and just hear couches being dragged across the floor and stuff, but it's on purpose, right? It's about like, you have to have purpose behind your transitions just as much as the intention that the actor has in a scene. That transition has to have intention or it's not going to work very well. Yeah.
I'm thinking of my next Fringe show, and my next Fringe show is going to be pure blackouts, just people dragging around furniture from one scene to the next. That's just out there. Happy Fringe, everyone. We open this week. Woohoo! So, Michael, any thoughts about blackouts?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts about blackouts?
Yeah, sure. I guess I'm generally anti, and I have this sensibility. A lot of my training's been in Shakespeare. A lot of my work has been in Shakespeare, and I always try to keep things moving. And it's like overlapping ends and beginning of scenes, right? This tops and tails kind of coming on top of each other. The scene I have this idea. I mean, it was, from lots of other wonderful artists I worked with, like including Sally Wood, who taught me a lot about what I know about directing. But the idea that like, as these scenes are moving, like we should feel like the scene just keeps moving from place to place, and we just, folks sweep off from stage right and they sweep onto stage left and they kind of keep the action going. But I also just did a show with teenagers last week, and it was Romeo and Juliet. And after the big fight in the middle of the show in 3-1, we had Tybalt's body on stage, and we're like gonna open tomorrow and we haven't run through in tech yet. It's like, cool, we're just gonna black out so that everybody can get up and walk away. We're not gonna stage like some kind of carry to get this actor off stage. These kids are exhausted, and let's just bring the lights down and it's okay. And so like my aesthetic is usually not to stop, is like to try to not stop. But I can absolutely think of situations where, it's all about pace. It's all about what we're doing and like how are we telling a story and what are we using to tell that story. And if we feel like we need space, because sometimes you've just dealt with something so heavy and horrific and we're going to change the tone, right? Like how do we give the audience a moment to breathe? And we can do that with blackout. We can do that with sound. We can do that with like, sometimes I have just had actors making passes on stage, like just doing crosses to like wipe the slate. Not even necessarily connecting one scene to the next, but it's thinking about pace. It's thinking about storytelling. It's like, how are we using all of these tools that we have? But yes, in general, I would prefer no blackouts whenever possible.
Can I ask a question really quick? I'm just wondering because half of what we make are like the problems we run into and then what we have to do with it. I'm wondering, did you add anything to that blackout? Did you, find cool music or anything or did you just leave it?
No, would have been cool, right? And it's like but it's, and some of it's resources, right? Like I'm not necessarily a sound designer, and I had a lot of hats on in that room. And if I was in a room with a team of designers, I've had those experiences too, which is wonderful to be able to go like, okay, so we know we're going to have to get this actor off stage. We're not going to stage a carry for whatever reason. So let's figure out, and we could do something we could do something that's not realistic. That's totally fine. We can create something with sound here, but I want more brains on it. You know what I mean? I'm like, I firmly believe in like the best idea in the room wins. And I want a process that's open. I remember I was directing a show at the Children's Theater a couple of years ago, trying to figure out this transition where it was like a character, Robbie Harrison, who was awesome in the show, had to fly away from Earth, right? He had to fly to the moon. We were like, we have all these great projections. We have the scenic design that's going to transition. He's off stage changing his costume. How can we fly away from Earth? And we were all sitting around during tech, all the designers, the artistic director was there. And it was just like, we just need bad ideas. Like, come on, let's throw out ideas. And so we threw out a million bad ideas until we found something that we didn't hate, right? So it's like, I felt like in that moment, this past week, my job was to keep the room moving, because that process was more about the experience the students are having than about the product that we're putting on stage. And my job in the room at the Children's Theater years ago was to like solve the problem we were having. And so it was different problems I was trying to solve, right? That was a storytelling problem. This most recent problem was like an experience problem. So we did not have anything cool to fill that moment with, is the short answer to that question.
Makes sense though.
A quick blackout. It was quick. And then we moved into a new scene. It was very exciting.
Nice.
I had a moment where there was a scene in a show that I directed recently, White, where I had a quick change problem. And I didn't want to have a blackout. I was like, we are aiming for a blackout. We just need that space, that time. And then so I did that sort of Peter Brooks thing. I just left the stage empty. And like the whole transition was just refocusing the lights on different elements so that it could fill the space so that we could deliver the transition. And then the space itself took over the story. And so I think that's something that oftentimes we're scared of as a director, right? Like what happens if an audience is just sitting there watching an empty space? And what does that say about us? Because we're always trying to drive the action. So I sometimes feel like stillness, which the blackout can convey, can be just as powerful.
I love that. And I think about like one transition I really loved years ago in a production of A Winter's Tale that I directed. I had a quick change problem, and I had an actor I didn't want to leave the stage. So we just shifted the lighting and did the quick change in front of the audience and made it, added storytelling, right? So we're like, the king is becoming more official. He's moving into some role as a judge. So we're going to deck him out in all this regalia, but we're going to have other actors come on in character and kind of like dress the king. And so we made the moment about the costume. And it was absolutely on the fly problem solving during tech. And I was like, I don't know how we do this. Let's just do it live. And it became a really beautiful moment that I was really, really proud of, and the storytelling that it added to the show.
Sally, I'm going to
Yeah.
jump to you because you've done so
Ah,
much new work. And so I want to ask, like, obviously we want to respect a new playwright's work. We don't want to add too much to the story that they've already presented. So how does transition building exist within that world? Like, how involved do you bring that playwright into that process, when possible?
I think well, that's a darn good question. I think I'm a bit of a bully when it comes to transitions, only because my sense of time and my sort of, I would call it like a more muscular storytelling is like, don't drop the ball, don't drop the ball. Here we go. We're gonna, you know what I mean? It's like we're constantly pushing toward the end zone. Um, to a fault, to the point where it's like it can almost become like panicked and like it's okay to breathe. And I'm like, no, it's not. We breathe after the play's done. And it's but I talk to playwrights a lot about, and it could just be my own like ADHD. I don't know, but like if for me when I drop into a blackout, especially if there's more than one, like if there's one, then I can almost go like, ooh, this is interesting. Like what's going on? But if the play is relying on blackouts in order to like shift the scenery, then I'm an a-hole about it. Like I'm just like, no, like I can't. 'Cause my brain immediately goes to, I wonder, did I park my car over there? Where are my keys? Did I turn off my phone? I hope I did. And then it takes me 10 minutes to get back into the story. Um, and so for me, when I'm dealing with new plays, especially, it's hard because I do love the storytelling transitions, and I don't want the playwright to feel like that something's being added on to their story, which is already their story. Um,
Mhm.
but it normally is just kind of scaffolding up the world of the play. And so basically, the transitions are just like shots in the hallway of like what's going on that we don't see, otherwise, as opposed to a really big plot point. Um, and because I feel like a play is like a bubble, and once you get people in the bubble, you gotta keep them there. And it's like, and if you pop the bubble, which is why intermissions are so hard. It's like you need a really strong reason to come back. Um, and it's like, which is why I like the 90-minute play is like my favorite thing. 85, even better. Um, but it's yeah. I don't know if I even answered your question, but there it
No,
is.
absolutely. You answered my question. I'm just thinking of like, as a director, I know every producer is like, but what about that intermission so I can
Yeah,
make off,
yeah,
with my sales on snacks
yeah,
and drinks and merch.
totally.
Totally. And yeah, sort of maintaining that sort of, right, how you suspend that through an intermission and transition out of act 1 into act 2,
Oh,
or even multiple acts for that matter,
yeah.
for those
Oh
of you
my God,
staring
I
at
think I
fun.
would jump off a building. Like, I don't think I've done a play that has multiple act breaks, because it's just that's so scary to me, because it's like, oh, I for as interesting as I feel like the world of the play is, or that I'm just not that interesting, which is like maybe one intermission, but no one's coming back after two.
You
Um, and
what I
it's,
love Oh,
yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
What I
you can
love
go.
about what you're talking about, Sally, is I didn't even realize this for myself, but when you're talking about it, I did realize it, especially with Dracula. It's like I look for if you're coming up for an intermission, I lean in as hard as possible. So I'm like, talking to all the designers of like, big build so everybody gets,
Yeah.
and we're stopping. But
Right.
you're going to want to come back because that was cool,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And and if we pull it off well, then it feels nice. I can sit there like the opposite of what you're talking about, because I think it's that exact fear. I have the
Yeah.
same thought, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to be sitting there, and like everyone's like, well, okay, what do we do? I guess,
Right.
are we gonna go home? Are we gonna, or whatever?
Yeah.
So it's like build it and make it cute. Like if
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
if you were thinking your story level is like, oh, it's gonna be fairly real and everything. Yeah, but we got an intermission at the end. Just before the intermission, it gets crazy.
Yeah.
It's gonna be so much fun. Please come back. And then
I
cut it.
actually I actually knew a musical
Yeah.
director a long time ago, which I think they're actually going to come on this season a little bit later. The artistic director of musicals, and she had a whole treatise about sort of making a standing ovation, like how you design a standing ovation
Oh yeah.
for a musical. And she said, that's the easy part. The hardest part is making it feel like they should give a standing ovation after act one so that they come back for act two. And I think that's the thing, is that that's exactly what you're speaking about. Like, we need to get them on their feet by the end of act one so they'll come back for act two. And, whether that's a cliffhanger by the design of the script or the way we build it, that's fascinating. What is your favorite kind of intermission build? Like, what is your hope like when you see it, Nathan?
Oh, the best intermission build? Yeah. Yeah, it'd be just what I was talking about, really. That it's like written in so you don't really have to do much. Grand Horizons. It's a very regular family story. And then just before intermission, a U-Haul crashes through a kitchen wall, And so it's a huge like, what? Never thought that was gonna happen in this show. I mean, when I was reading it, I was just like, what? Like, I was audible. That's crazy. And I laughed about it forever. I was like, how in the world am I supposed to make that happen? Like, how are you supposed to put that on stage? But yeah, I mean, so first look for a script that makes it easy for you. Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think it's like ideally it's that gasp. You know what I mean? And it's like everyone's like, oh, and then blackout. And then it's like intermission and everyone's like, what? U-Haul, what? And then people are talking about the play during intermission, which is really exciting versus, going immediately back to the dinner conversation they were having before the play started, but I find that those moments pre-intermission are really rare in terms of the play doing a great job of preparing us for that.
And that's the thing is, we're there to interpret the play that's in front of us. And if it's written like a slow burn thing, it's trying to find those moments of, like maybe you've done enough that you've found the moments within a very calm play and be like, but that's a moment we're really going to make stand out. Like, here's the major theme, a major theme of this. And it's one that speaks to me as a director. I'm going to point at that. I'm going to point hard at that. I'm going to make that moment as big as possible. I'm going to make this moment as big as possible. So then maybe that's enough that people have that to talk about at least, like there's a few things that stand out, because if it's all like this, then, they don't have anything to talk about.
Then it's no exit, right?
Yeah.
Mike, I want to sort of shift to, obviously Shakespeare occurs outdoors, it occurs indoors. Like, has environment ever shifted the way you build the transitions and how that's impacted your thought about transitions, especially in the sort of Shakespeare world where sometimes we're outdoors, sometimes we're indoors, sometimes we're in a black box?
Yeah. I think it's really it's really interesting that we have this tradition of outdoor Shakespeare, and we would never do that with a new play. Like, we would just never take a play outside. And I think it's really interesting to think. I mean, and a lot of people, like, there are interesting, weird artists who make plays that you could do anywhere. But I think that for most playwrights, they're like writing with the expectation of like a full technical design and like the abilities of a theater. And so, yeah, I mean, when we're working outside, anytime you're working outside, there's like, good luck with a blackout, buddy. Like, that just doesn't happen, right? What are you going to do? So if you just you get but it's a gift too, because you get the audience to buy into the fact that they can see the seams right off the jump, right? So you have a certain kind of buy-in that allows you to play in different ways, and the audience is on board with it right away because they know that the actors can't hide. If they're like looking off to the left and okay, like Romeo's watching, we did Romeo and Juliet inside, but it's like this actor's watching, like that's an actor and not the character. Like, okay, cool. And there's a long historical theatrical tradition of that, like of the idea of when they're on stage, they're in character, when they're off stage, they're not. And that's fine. It's just really interesting to tap into these things that we think would be like completely anathema in a theater building. But when you're outside, it's like, oh, cool. They're just like watching the play like everybody else. And And yeah, I mean, your transitions just have to move. You have to make choices. Whenever I'm doing theater like that, if I can incorporate live music where the actors are playing or there's an additional musician, that really helps create like a sense of magic. And then you can do things like songs, but I am not a huge fan of being outside and having recorded music at the same time. Like that feels like a weird thing to me. Like we're outside, it should be about, we've kind of intentionally chosen to strip away some of the tools we have to like create this magical space. So let's really lean into it being these are human people in this space with you, and all the art is made by them, right? So I really try to rely on live music whenever we can, because it taps into something really magic.
It feels like a theme park if you do canned music at an outdoor live theater event. Yeah. I agree
And
with you.
I love that idea of like stripping away the artifice that like we need to be in this immersive experience, the 4 rooms, like we need to be in this immersive experience. I actually heard someone say to me, it's like, I can't enjoy theater because I always don't feel like, like I feel like I am supposed to be in this room because I'm supposed to be immersed in this world and it's just not as convincing as television. And I was like, well, you need to let go of that. And once you let go of that, that's where the enjoyment comes from. Like I always like to say, like the reason I got into theater was I was sitting in the audience looking at the sort of rafters, being like, oh, what are they doing up there?
Uh-huh.
How are they doing that?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that got me involved, was like watching the sort of giant opera set pieces get moved out of the way and wondering who's doing that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, even though the story was compelling.
Well, I think it's like I think it's super important. Sorry, I'm jumping over, but like this idea that like TV film is better. It's better and better, and it's in your pocket all day long. Like there are people who can do that so much better than we can do it. And so when I see video screens on stage, I get like there are places where they're used really beautifully, right? Like there are reasons to use that technology, but most of the time I'm like, I think that's the wrong call. Like there are better versions of that in your pocket right now. There are like however many people are in the audience have access to better versions of that right now. So we got to lean into the thing that we can do that film and TV, can't do, right? That like recording can't do, which is being actors or being people in space with each other. Like that's what makes it theater. That's the thing that's important. And so if we can't find a way to make that the thing that is exciting, then I think we kind of fail.
What a lovely way to end this segment. We'll be right back. You're listening to Forge Theater Labs. This is Directors Roundtable, Death by Transition. We'll be right back.
At Forge Theater Labs, we're building bold, imaginative theater, supporting new artists, new stories, and new ways of experiencing performance. We're proud to share that Forge Theater Labs is now a sponsored project of Fractured Atlas, which means your donations are tax deductible and directly support the creation of this podcast, live tapings, and artist-driven projects. If our work has inspired you, made you think, or brought you closer to the theater community, we invite you to help keep it going. You can make a donation by visiting forgetheaterlabs.com for our link to our Fractured Atlas page. Every contribution, big or small, helps us forge new pathways for artists and audiences alike. Thank you for being part of our community.
Welcome back to Forge Theater Labs. I'm Josh Hsu, your host, and I am thrilled today to talk about transitions. And with us, we have Sally Wood, Nathan Gregory, Michael Dix Thomas, to talk about transitions and how we build them. We just spent a little bit of time talking about how we build them. And so I thought we might transition into who we build them with. Who we build them with reveals the decisions that we make, obviously how information moves through that rehearsal room, how we build trust into that, and maybe even when, maybe creative tensions emerge. And so I like to think of it like a difficult transition is rarely just a staging problem. It's often, a collaboration problem if we're encountering issues with transitions. So I thought I'd sort of open it up first to, when do you begin to think about transitions and who do you approach first in that discussion?
I think about it automatically when I'm reading it. Like when I'm reading the script, I'm seeing it in my head and thinking about like how that would transition from this, that, or the other. Which was hilarious for Grand Horizons because it's an amazingly well written play by Bess Wall. But she left the transition stuff as like you had to be a detective to figure out like, oh wait, what's supposed to happen? Oh, because this shows up here. It wasn't like spelled out, of like, and now we're in a new scene and these things have changed or anything. It wasn't spelled out. So I had these really cool transitions set up that I didn't get to use, and I didn't figure it out until later. That I was like, oh wait a minute, we have to move that chair off. That chair has to be gone. So I can't do the jump cut thing that I was gonna do with the cool night to day thing and all of this. So yeah, so that didn't work very well for me that time. I had to change everything in the last minute. But yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking of it early on. And so it's early first production meetings is me talking about those things and having some of it written out and mood boarded of like, here's some things that we can do. And like, again, inspiring those things of like, oh, I'm thinking we can do this, we could do that. And handing little bits off for other people to pick up and run off and play with is how I try to approach it.
I wanna see one of these mood boards, Nathan, of, like, maybe we can include them in the show notes of, like, what that looks like from a sort of creative end, just because, too often we're in silos, like, as directors, like, we don't share our
Yeah.
mood boards unless we have, like, a co-director or an assistant, like,
Yeah.
what that looks like, or a director's book, which I'm insane about, like, like, I have, like, a Bible that I build for every show.
Oh,
And
awesome.
so,
Yeah.
each of us have our sort of unique ways. Sally, any thoughts here?
Oh man, I am like broad strokes. Like it's so funny. Because I I think about them in like the big like CSI worldview of the play, but I don't think about them practically. Like that stage management will come to me typically and they're like, well, how are we gonna do that? And I'm like, I don't know, but we're gonna do it
Yeah.
and we're gonna figure it out. But I don't want to talk about it right now because I'm dreaming about this other thing right now and I need to
Mhm.
be here. And then so I can see stage management like Sally, you do know there are 4 quick changes happening now and you want 3 different things to fly in. And I was like, "Yep, I do." So how are we going to pull that off? And so I just kind of keep I guess like kicking the can like downstream because so much of it I can't figure out until we're in tech and I've got those costume changes, and then I know it's like, oh, like this is a real costume change. Like this isn't just like throwing on a coat, which means you can then fly something in, you know. And I tend to volunteer actors for way too much. Where I'm like, if we're in the play, like we're in the play, like all 10 of us need to be doing whatever it takes to move this story along versus and I've gotten in trouble for that. People who are like, no, no, this is my lane and I stay in my lane. Uh that can become difficult for me because I think it's just not that's not who I am as an actor either. Like I'm the first one to be like, I know I've got a quick change, but I can totally, with my elbow, I can move this in and then I can do that. And that grounds me in the play because then I'm a part of like all of it. And then I feel like I'm less of a precious thing that can mess everything up. It's like, no, I can't freak out and not do my job because I'm flying in the main set piece, and so it's yeah, it's fun. And then I get mad when people try to help me in tech. And so I'll often wait for a break or a lunch break and then I'll sneak into the space by myself and I'll put my headphones on and I will craft usually the transition because it's
Mm.
not just about it's about the mechanics of yes, I've got to move this, I've got to move that, but then I need to fluff it so that it makes sense and propels us forward. And I think sometimes people it's like people that I love the practical people, like they thank God, you know what I mean? They get us from A to B and stuff. But it's just not where my brain goes. So I just got to tell that little story that gets us still from A to B, but it's just that little thing that makes it interesting to me. Um, and so yeah. I tend to wait on everything.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's a sort of personal element to the process. And I want to hear Michael's before I jump in mine, because mine is probably the weirdest thing because people think I'm asleep sometimes when I'm designing transitions. And so I'm gonna come back to that, Michael. But you first.
Oh, great. Um, yeah, I definitely come to transitions late in the process. I think about, I mean, when I'm reading a play, I might have images, I might have music in my head. Like there might be moments, but I want to keep things as vague and open as possible until I have the people, right? So the actors and the designers, and I've got all those heads on a project together. And I kind of see that first design meeting as like, I'm trying to set vibes, if anything, right? So I'm like, here's kind of what we want this to feel like. And then I want the people who are better at designing the set, the props, the costumes, right? To like figure out how to make that work. Because I'm not an expert in any of those areas. And I really, really need to trust the people that I'm working with. And so because of that, I don't run rehearsals the same way on every project. I don't run production meetings the same way on every project. I run entirely based on the people that I'm working with. And um and it becomes about like giving people a ton of trust early so that they feel empowered to make choices. And then it's my job to ultimately say yes, no, maybe less of this, maybe more of that, right? Because I have to hold the whole show in a way that nobody else has to. Like the director has to hold the whole picture. But I think I really hate to be prescriptive, and I love other people's ideas. I get really excited about other people's ideas. And so I'll think about in terms of like, okay, this is the kind of story that we're trying to tell. This is the way I want this moment to feel. And I try to use language that's about feeling, and not prescriptive about design, right? And so that when we get to those things and we start to feel those things, then the transitions become apparent because it's like we're going from this to this. We're going from this feeling, this vibe to this feeling and this vibe. So how do we get there? And we kind of build together. Yeah, but it's always a different process for me, and it's always a different, it's so responsive to the other groups of artists that I'm working with. And when you start working with a team and realizing that this person, okay, so like this sound designer who's in the room actually has a lot of thoughts about these other things, then you're doing the process of is that helpful? Is that useful? Right. But if you create a space where you from the beginning, empowered people to share their thoughts about whatever within a frame, right. And not making other people feel like that's prescriptive to them, right. That's, sound designer might share something that the actor hates, but it's still a new idea in the room. I kind of love that. I mean, ultimately, and I think this is a lot about the way that I teach, but it's I am trying to give myself less and less responsibility and give the people involved in the other people involved in the process more and more responsibility. So, and that's particularly important for students, but it's also really helpful when I work with adults, which I actually find to be less different than I would have expected.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm thinking about a student that I had once where I just didn't say much in response to them. They kept on talking. And I feel as a director, sometimes allowing that person to keep on talk so they come up to their own solution. But you could see them progressively get frustrated and then land on their own solution through that conversation. And I was an adjunct at the time, and I thought that was such an amazing experience of this is going to teach me something about directing, of there are times where I can just shut my mouth. I don't have to have that idea ready to go. And so with that in mind, my answer is I am been known that when I watch a play, sometimes the first thing I'll do is, if I'm trying to connect the dots because I feel like something is missing, is I'll close my eyes. and I'll just listen because maybe it's the vision, like it's my vision getting in the way, like my visual biases getting in the way of the story. So I'll listen to the story. I'll listen to the rhythm, and then that's where the transitions come from. Is sort of hearing the text either from the reader. So sometimes it comes during the read through. Sometimes it comes when we're in the design room with the sound and all this stuff, and I can hear all this different set pieces moving in rhythm. I feel like that's the moment where I'm able to sort of see what's missing in that gap and then be able to sort of figure out how to connect one way to the other, whether, we need a quick change, or we need, a jump cut, or we need a story transition. I think that's the way I see the world, which is just closing my eyes and like letting it sort of, what is the thing that we're evoking in this moment? And then open my eyes and be like, what's missing from this? And how do we fill that in?
One thing about that, Josh, I feel like I have a different, I get so caught in language that when I'm working on a show, particularly Shakespeare, or like, as it was handed to me from Sally, like I worked on the Christmas Carol at Portland Stage. So like Dickens, right? Like there's a lot of this like, okay, so it's about the language, it's about the text, which is what we get from the playwrights, but I can get really hung up on that. And I'm not as strong with stage picture. So I do a lot of trying to watch and listen less. Like once I've got the language in a place, I try to listen a little bit less so that I can focus on the visual, because it's not my instinct, it's not my strength. And it's like, it is harder for me to turn off my ears than close my eyes. But it's like, how do I focus on that is something that I find myself consciously doing too, which I think is really interesting.
I think it's interesting that it's a inverse process. Nathan, I want to jump to you. Like you've been an editor in the film world, and so like how does that teach you about transitions? Like when you're editing film and then bringing it to the theater world.
Yeah, I don't know. It's it's story to me, and yeah, like it's I don't know. It's exactly what we were talking about. You've already pointed at the rhythms and stuff, and that's how you can know a good editor. And it's the reason like a lot of comedy people that I've known have also been good editors. Like you're good at comedy, you get rhythms of jokes and stuff, and you can figure that out in editing as well. And and that be in a drama or whatever it is. But yeah, so there's a thing about that of like you feel it, right? And so I do that when I'm video editing of like, oh, I've got all these different things and I can do this longer cut that makes this happen. And how does that tell the story? Which is a hilarious thing that you learn if you ever edit like movie stuff. The editor is basically the actor and director. I notice all the time now, like, I'm not gonna remember who was bad or whatever, but I'll notice it while I'm watching a movie. But it's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if Johnny Depp is that great of an actor actually, because if that was me, I would want to see his eyes right there. I would never cut away from that moment. It seems like it's good, but the editor cut away for some reason and looked at somebody else. They're not doing much of anything. It's kind of boring. And they come back to him because he never gave a cut that was what it needed to be. Maybe it was the pace. You have to cut, so you're actually cutting out some of the, I'm going to think about it and then deliver the line. I got to get that out because it's actually got to go quicker.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's the editor fixing actors' performances and stuff, and it's crazy. But yeah, so you can feel that it happens to me again, like when I'm just reading a script. I feel like I'm looking for all the clues. And a lot of this is from training in Shakespeare and stuff. For me, I had to approach it like a detective, right? Of like, this doesn't make full sense to me. I got to figure out, what is that word supposed to mean? What is this? Oh, all this is this daily behavior. It just didn't read that way to me, when I'm reading it at a young age, So, I dive in and I look for clues of is this writer trying to say? What exactly do they think that this is? And then I try to find ways to support it in whatever way that, with transitions and, how you do your transitions from, oh, that's this kind of a scene. So you should probably end, you got like 3 or 4 options of ending in this kind of a note or inspiring, or whatever, So kind of withers it down pretty quickly to the few. Yeah.
I think about sort of like, when we're sort of trying to narrow down a transition, and obviously it feels a little bit, it can feel sometimes like, oh, now it's time to, like, it's go time. Like, we need to pigeon ourselves into sort of
Right.
one decision and
Yeah.
one choice. And oftentimes I feel like there's often some tension that can arise in that moment because people are disagreeing with you. Like, obviously I lean on my sound designers, I lean on my actors, the sound of the text to sort of build my transitions. But like, without calling anybody out, like, is there any sort of tension that you sort of typically find with someone where you're like, oh, like, this is the tension that I'm going to have in this transition because I want the rhythm to go X way. And this is sort of my blind spot. So, like, this is typically where I find myself struggling. Sally, you're nodding your head. And so,
Yeah, I think it's it's funny because, when you especially when you work with designers, I think because they the professional designers that we work so much more than the directors or the actors. Like, they're 10, like, for every Christmas Carol I've done, the lighting designer has done 15 Christmas carols, and if I'm smart, I'll turn around and be like, how did you guys solve this problem? You know what I mean? Because I don't know, but it's interesting, uh, just kind of needing to rely on my own instinct sometimes. And part of that too is you've got stage management who's trying to call things, and I can feel it. And most often the stage manager feels it too, where it's like, yeah, when the music does this, that's when, bloop, you know what I mean? The transition's over and we've landed here and we're like, it's like the little cherry on top of the thing. And, and it's just kind of getting everybody to speak that language. And it's hard when it's like, I see a cupcake and somebody else sees like a piece of pie. And I'm like, it's not pie, it's a goddamn cupcake. You know what I mean? Like, it's like this.
Yes.
And then I realized, well, then usually I'm not being clear about what I need or what I want or why this makes sense to me. Um, but there's a huge ooga booga factor in transitions for me, which is like when it works, I know it, and I'm like the gasp happens. It's like, oh God. And then we lost into that scene and it made it better. And it was like a diving board, and if we're off, I feel that too, where it was like, yeah, we just missed that exit. And here we are on the turnpike, what I mean, sort of 40 miles before we get off again, but it's how to articulate that and how to I don't know, come up with that kind of common vocabulary, um, can be different. And then usually if I'm really being obstinate about something, it's like then I have to stop and go, okay, what am I not seeing from this other person? Because if they're fighting for something this hard, then they're seeing something that I'm not. And
mm,
I gotta just step off and take a look and figure out, you know what I mean? Because again, we're dealing with too many talented, intelligent people to not listen to them, you know.
absolutely.
So
I think it's that's totally true. It's like if we're being obstinate and there is somebody in the room like that has a different perspective, like it's usually on us because like we've committed to this vision, but that isn't necessarily what's going to serve the production. And at the
right.
end of the day, the transition has to serve the production. And I feel this especially is that when an audience sees a transition, they're going to know if it feels forced or it feels
Yeah.
earned, it feels lived. And you can feel that in the room. They may not be able to articulate what it was,
Yeah.
but they're going to be sitting in that.
Yeah.
You can feel that energy in the room, at least that ooga booga, so to
Yeah.
speak, in that room.
Yeah.
Um, I think this is a really great one because a lot of what we're talking about is like usually when transitions don't work, it's usually a human one and not a production one. And
Mm.
so, uh, Michael, you sort of leaned into this sort of like idea of like leaning on your collaborators. Like, is there a specific collaborator that you tend to, ignore or lean on, especially, when you're when you're building those transitions?
I don't think. So my experience is as an actor first, and so that's where I go first, and that's because of the way that our process is built. Those are the people that I tend to have the most time with. So those have been the folks that I've built up the strongest relationships with, as opposed to the designers, unless it's somebody I worked with a lot on other projects, because typically I have so little time with the designers. Um, but I think the professional process is too short, and I want more time, and I want to spend more time in it because I love rehearsal. Some people hate rehearsal. I love rehearsal, and I want to spend more time in rehearsal, and I want to have everybody in the room all the time. But that never happens. So I feel like I lean more on the actors, and they become more engaged, more empowered in the process than some processes that I've been in as an actor. At least I'm trying to do that and trying to stay open to them. I think that it's really tough for me to work on a show where I've communicated with a designer, and then they show up during tech, and it's the first time where I'm actually meeting a person in a room, and I'm trying to give them and their experience and their knowledge, their expertise, the same weight as just happen to be the handful of people I've been making the story with for the past couple of weeks. Right. So it's like, how do I weight that properly? And I think I just have to, in those moments, I have to check myself and hear everybody out and know, like Sally was saying, it's a gut check of no, this is right. I know I'm right, and I know you're wrong, and we can talk about why, right? Those were not Sally's words, but this is going to work, and try to stay open. Let's try. What I want is enough time to try every suggestion, and then say, okay, so mine was right, or that's so much more exciting and so much better and fits the moment so much better than what I had in mind, right? I want to stay open to that possibility, but the nature of the amount of time we have to do this and the amount of space that everybody has and the budgets, we just have to make a call right now. And that's tricky. So typically the things that trip me up later as I'm watching a show is I deprioritized that. When we got into tech, I stopped caring about that. I was worrying about this other thing. I had bigger fish to fry. And no matter how true that is, I'm I should have come back to that moment. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I always feel that in the moment where you just keep on watching that one single moment where you're like, I ignored that because I was so worried about how we got from point A to point B and that quick change that that was the sort of priority problem right there. I think it's interesting when we talk about sort of priorities when it comes to tech. I have always advocated for a longer tech process just because, we're expecting the actors to have the full story almost fleshed out and then be able to insert all these elements at the same time, still incorporate that and make changes on the fly. And that is such a difficult process to get everybody in the room, but we also want to respect our designers' time. And, when they fly in or they come in, for a short period of time, you need to be able to work effectively and quickly with them. And so I think I wish there were an intermediate stage where you could just test out everything, like a trial tech run, and just say oh yeah, we're going to rebuild the set. But if you have an unlimited budget, Mike,
yeah,
that's the answer. And so we're just going to land on that.
We're working on it.
It's really odd though that how much time is spent on the play and the designers aren't brought into a lot of that process. You have production meetings, you get to have some conversations, and then tech is there, and you just whatever's been accomplished has been accomplished, and then you got to figure everything else out in a few hours, and it really feels insane. It feels totally different than the process that you have with your actors, where you're able to have those conversations and then come in and work on it together and see it grow and turn into the thing, right? And that's one of the reasons it's hard. It's one of the reasons that I think about these tech elements the way that I do, that I try to have strong vision for them, give a breadcrumb out, and let people play with that thought and have options, you know? And so it's never that everyone's just doing exactly what I tell them to do, but we're in line. So then when we get there to the tech, I know you got a couple of options there we can flip through, sound designer, of like transitions. Which one did you think was going to work the best? All right, let's do that one. And I try to not protect myself either, because I want them to take chances. So Grand Horizons, I threw it out. I was like, I don't know if the artistic director is going to like this. And I don't know if it's going to work overall, but I've got an idea, and my sound designer really liked it. And I was like, go ahead and work on other options as well, because we've got these as well could work. Right. But I had this thing coming out of intermission that is the first time that the mother character is in a room with the woman who has been having an affair with her husband, right? And it's been like building to this weird moment, right? You come out of intermission and it's the two of them in a room together, right? Well, I was like, I'm doing this thing with the music where the music kind of has all the emotions in it that the characters aren't saying, because it's part of they're like emotionally stunted. They don't know how to talk about things, right? So I was like, what if we come in with a song that's part of the intermission music? I found this song. It's all kind of folksy stuff that, feels nostalgic and everything. And it's Martha Wainwright. It's an old folk song. And she's singing about this stuff, right? And she's being emotionless about it. And then she just goes on to this thing where I won't say it here, but it's like bloody mother effer, like over and over again. She's like, you bloody mother effer, bloody mother, like singing it beautifully. And I was like, what if this is the last song in intermission? And then they get on, we got to figure out the transition. And we had it set up. The actors came in, and the lights changed. They came in, and the song's just playing out from the end of intermission. And then right when that starts, the lights are coming up slowly to show the two of them standing in the living room, just staring out. And she just looks as happy as can be. And then when it cuts out, first line is, well, can I get you anything, Carla? Just as nice as can be, right? So I'm thinking, this sounds good, right? It's totally going to work. And we did it. And it was the first day that Brian, our assistant director at Good Theater, came to see it. And there's a few other people as well. I didn't need anyone to be there for me to know right when it happened. I was like, doesn't work. It's like, it doesn't work. In my head, there's all sorts of cussing and stuff and everything, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't get that. It doesn't get like that until the second act. Now, in my brain, the whole world is like this, so it's going to work perfectly. But everything we've seen to that point, it didn't get that rough. It's right after intermission that they start to get really rough and like cussing at each other and doing all this stuff. So it didn't work at all. And I just needed to hear it out loud and be like, yeah, we're not going to do that again. But then everyone that saw it was like, I don't think you want to use that song. I don't think. I mean, it was awkward. It was really awkward. I was like, does not work.
I think it's, I think there's just moments that, like, I think that speaks to transitions, and we can design them in ways that both draw our audience in and take them out. Right. And like, sometimes it's useful to like push them away, to, in a Brechtian term, alienate them, to push them out of the frame, to sort of take a step back and be like, this is the world you actually live in. Whereas other times, like, we need to use music or whatever it is to draw them in, or to keep on suspending their belief in the world. And so I think there is that sort of push and pull of, when you talk about shining lights on an audience, Michael, to blind them so that, they're magically something else appears. I like that, to be like, hey, go look away somewhere else, because I need you to take a step back from this play and think about that. That's like one of my favorite transitions when I directed Stop Kiss, was like getting the audience to sort of step back and say, what am I watching? And am I thinking about what I'm watching? Because, at the end of the day, we want our audience hopefully to think, right? Or at least
Yeah.
have a good time. But in those moments, I think, how we sort of pull them in and push them out, I think is really important to us. On that note, I think we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. You're listening to Forge Theater Labs. Want to get your brand in front of a passionate, creative, and engaged audience? Forge Theater Labs is looking for partners to sponsor this podcast and join us in bringing bold, innovative theater to life. If you'd like to place an ad right here, reach out to us at marketing@forgetheaterlabs.com. It's a simple, powerful way to support the arts while sharing your message with listeners who care about creativity and community. Again, that's marketing@forgetheaterlabs.com. Let's build something extraordinary together. And welcome back to Forge Theater Labs. I'm Josh Hsu, and we were just speaking to Sally Wood, Nathan Gregory, Michael Dix Thomas about transitions. And in our last segment, we focused a little bit more on transitions with our collaborators, who we work with, how we lean on it. And so I thought I'd sort of turn it a little bit more personal during this and sort of shift us to, what is our sort of signature as directors when it comes to transitions? Because, all of us directors develop habits, instincts, and recurring solutions. And some of them become like a signature piece of our work. And so I thought I might sort of open it up to, do you have a signature one? Do you tend to steal from other directors, if that is a thing? Or, maybe even how you've grown in your thoughts about transitions over time. And so I'll let us sit on this for a moment because I know it's a difficult question to ask.
I love wheels, which is so cheap, but oh my God, I saw this crazy Sense and Sensibility, and it was like, it just felt like it was all done on office chairs, and somebody was in the middle of a scene, and then a chair would come sliding in, and they'd catch it, and then they'd sit in it and do the rest of the scene. And I was just, from that point on, I was like, oh my God, everything I do has to have wheels. Um, and then I go to the set designer, I'm like, let's put the desk on wheels. And then they're like, yeah, but it's gonna roll. And I'm like, yeah. But then I needed to stay still for the whole scene. And they're like, that's not how physics work. Um, and so that's a little disappointing. But I do find that one show I did, I had somebody on scaffolding that was on wheels. And at one point they were spinning it. I mean, we're getting into like whatever that Starlight Express moment is, that was like, but it was so exciting for me because at one point, there was an actor up there talking to the audience and the whole thing was moving toward the audience. And I was just like, okay, now I am artistically turned on.
You've hit your peak. It's all downhill from now.
I'm like, that's it.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not going to get good at that. And then the next time I try to do it, the actor's like, well, I broke my arm, so I've got no arm strength, so I can't actually catch. And then I'm like, it's okay. Well, great. There goes my whole, there goes the wheels on this one. Um, so yeah, it's funny. And just when we were talking in the last segment, it's like how many times I have built or dreamt of something only to have it come like crashing down, or being like, wow, that is ugly and doesn't work. Very much like what you're talking about, Nathan.
Yeah.
And it's like, that looks like a blob of Christmas lights. It's not beautiful. It's a blob of Christmas lights, It's like, and we spent 3 days on it. And it's
So,
Anyway.
scenic designers, if you're listening, next time you design a show for Sally Wood, make sure you put wheels
wheels, and a
wheels
blob
on
of
it,
Christmas light.
and a blob of Christmas lights.
Um,
Michael, what about you?
I am really struggling to come up with an answer to this question, Josh.
I'm really good at stumping people. And so we'll jump around. We'll come back to you. Nathan, what about you?
Okay, I would say the thing that's most important to me is precision. So that's probably something that would come across as well, of like that would stand out as, it could be something that you could get tired of, like if you keep coming to see a Nathan Gregory production, and it's like, oh, well, they're zipping right to their point and grabbing the thing and zipping right out, might be that. I don't know.
On wheels.
Yeah, I did realize this just the other day, because I was calling myself out to somebody. I was like, oh, sorry, I introduced this thing to the group or whatever. I'm kind of a sap. And then like 3 people turn around and was like, oh yeah, yeah, we know. So I think that probably comes across in my productions too, of like overall directing. I don't know if it gets in transitions or not, but like, like comedic precision and stuff like that. But I'm also a little sappy. I like heartfelt stuff. Even if it is a silly comedy, or I don't know, it could be dramatic horror or something. I want some heart in there, or it's not worth it to me, I guess. But yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, that's so fascinating that like, you want to give yourself, like, you want to give your audiences like that break, that comedic heart, that like ability to thing. I think that over time, as I've grown as a director, I have found myself like enamored by stillness. And that is something that, like in contrast to motion, or, like
Yeah.
from a sort of staging perspective, like that tension between movement and stillness. And sometimes like I have gone overboard with stillness, where I'm just like, you got to sit there for like, 20 minutes while this next scene happens, and then we'll come back to your scene. And so, that was Shadowbox Michael Christopher, but like, so sorry, actors who had to do that and tremor through that and breathe through that and learn how to exist through that. But I do find that like, having that freeze frame while having motion at the same time allows us to disconnect from one scene and build into the next. And so that I've always found fascinating, the actor that's left behind, that's frozen while the world moves beyond, from many perspectives that we've seen.
I feel like you really need a turntable.
Absolutely. That is my dream, a turntable for Red Light Winter. That is like at the top of my list of like what I want. A snow globe turntable.
Wow.
That was my pitch for years. My dream of like a set that is a turntable for Red Light Winter.
Can I say, I'm realizing because a lot of the things that you talk about, Josh, I'm like, yeah, the stillness and all these things. And it takes me back to like training, devised theater and stuff. And like, I'm like, yeah, I don't get to do that, of like, because of where I'm directing right now, the shows that we're making. It's like different things that you get to do, different muscles you get to use on different stages with different shows, but I did love that with Grand Horizons, able to do that a little bit of like, when early on we had several, people wanting to move around more. You're an actor and you're trying to sing, you're like, well, I gotta go over here, I gotta talk about it over here, I gotta do that. And I try to tell them, I was like, no, you know what? I think we had our big fun scene, and I'm having fun just listening to you at that table. I think people are gonna like that. I think you're earning it. It's written so freaking well, and you're performing it so well, So able to get some of that stillness, but I like it on the level of what you're talking about, and I look forward to more opportunities to like play around with more of that stuff. Yeah.
Well, welcome to Forge Theater Labs. That's all we do, is the
Yeah.
weird stuff. Michael, what about you? Coming back to you.
Thank you for giving me more time to think. Like, just excellent podcast content. I feel like, so Nathan, that was really helpful for me to hear, because I think to a fault am sloppy and like don't usually care that much about precision. I'm like, throw it at the wall, see what happens. And like, I care about precision in language, and I care about precision in comedy, like a lot. And every now and then I'll like get I'll be like, no, this moment really has to be exactly this. But I am so, yeah. I mean, it's good enough. I'll buy it. The story, I'll buy it. Like we buy it. The story works. I care so much more about it feeling, and this is a dangerous word, right? But like authentic to the experience of that actor in this moment, right? Like, and thank you, Sally's background computer, for like boosting me on that point. But it's like, I care so much more about like what feels right to you in this moment, and you knowing you have the freedom to play with that, to find it if it feels different on, Tuesday morning or Saturday night, right? Like there's a frame and we play within that frame, but within that, I want you to feel like you have a lot of freedom. Um, Aside from things like violence and intimacy and comedy, and like there's stuff that has to play out, right? For safety and because it doesn't work. But a lot of it is like I would like to be surprised when I come see the show in 2 weeks, you know? And I would
Mhm.
like to feel like it's alive and like the people are empowered to live in it. Um, yeah.
I love that. I love leaving on that note. And so let's do some sort of quick one sentence closing. I think I might take it a little bit even more personal at this point. And what transitions are you currently living through on stage or off stage that you're trying not to rush? And I'll go first. It's at the time of this recording, my daughter's first birthday, my third child's first birthday. I'm not trying to live through that because I am, 3 and done. So I'm done. And so I'm trying to enjoy that final like transition to having that last 1-year old. And so that's a transition that I'm going through.
That's awesome.
Anybody else?
I mean, I feel similarly like I have a 4-year-old. Um, and it's like constant transition and watching how the human brain develops and how a human learns and grows. And every moment is full of discovery and also really frustrating. And it's all so much all the time. Um, and it's so easy for me to fall into like, "Ah, I have to get ready for work. I have to whatever, like, we got to go shopping. We like all the stuff and to kind of forget to live in these moments. And so I'm trying to live in these moments as much as I can.
Nathan?
Um, yeah, I guess I don't know, I do this, I'm maybe overly honest sometimes, but I as a theater maker, I have a fatal flaw. So, like, I grew up on a farm, and it was just about you work hard, you have proven yourself, you're good. And so that's how I've done most of my work, right? And in theater as well, like in school. I work hard on all these things. I do the performance, people see them, they ask me to come and do something else. And that's how I get from theater to theater and do these things. Yeah. I moved to New York and hit a plateau with that because you have to do other things than that, right? But I lived my whole life like that. It's like an ethos. It's like, oh no, being modest or whatever it is that's in my bones, right? And I am, going through like, raising my child. We're talking about kids, raising my child and being stay-at-home dad and video editor and stuff. And now coming back in to being like trying to be full on artist, keeping day job as well, but really trying to be artist. I'm back at this boulder that I'm trying to transition from not just doing the work at the theater, which has invited me in and enjoys my work and everything, but like go out and find more, have those conversations. Go to a coffee with Josh and, talk about doing a podcast and stuff. But like, I need to initiate those things instead of Josh having to come to me. And
I'll always come to you. I love talking to you.
but
So
that's my transition right now. And I thought maybe I was like, I won't bring it up. But no, this is for us creatives to talk and be honest about this stuff and try to help each other out. And so there may be other people, artists out there that have the same problem of like, it's okay to advocate for yourself and go out and try to make opportunities for yourself. And yeah.
sounds like an idea for another director's roundtable down the line.
Yeah.
Sally, what about you?
Oh, no. I don't know. I think I'm at a crossroads, which seems kind of weird. Like I feel like I'm coming up against something, and I don't know quite how to articulate it yet. And so I've been thinking a lot about, it's like how are you going to judge success for yourself, and how do you how do you know when you've gained that? And how do you not compare yourself to others? And how do you, and it's like, it's, I would say I'm really bad about that. And just trying to get into a place that's like, whoa, 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 noise, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, in a vacuum, how am I doing? Like in this one precious life, like am I working it, as hard as I want to? Am I doing the projects that really make me happy? Am I, but even trying to articulate that stuff now feels really hard. And there's something in like the beigeness, of the safety of like, oh yeah, this is fine, everything's going, like whatever. And then, so I don't know. I feel like I need to take myself out for a drink or for coffee and be like, Sally, dude, what's up? Like, what's the next step? What's the next chapter?
Just don't create an AI Sally. That's all I ask.
No, no, God,
To have a
God help us.
conversation with, right? Like Marjorie Prime.
Oh God, yes.
Oh my God.
No.
Thank you, everyone. Nate, I know you've got Little Shop coming up. Michael, what's next for you?
I am fully in on the education and community engagement work at Agunkwood Playhouse. I've transitioned into a new job, and it's a big job and an exciting new place, and it's growing, and there's a lot of expansion there. So I am not seeking out any additional artistic work at this time.
Fantastic.
I am tired and I am trying to hang out with my family when I can. But my wife has got 2 exciting projects coming up. I don't know when this is going to go out, Josh, but the next installment of Portland's own perverted little charming puppet Grumbo it will involve Caitlin Manfrey, and also Octet with Portland Theater Festival this summer, which I'm really excited about.
Awesome. That's really exciting. That's exciting. Sally, what about yourself?
Woo! Well, it's funny. I just passed on a directing job, which was really scary, because I love the play, and instead I'm going to be acting in something because that's scarier. And so I decided that it's like flexing that muscle makes me a better director because then I remember how hard it is and all the things. So yeah, I'll be acting in the fall, and
And what?
mm-hmm. I believe it's called Seven Sisters. It's by Lynn Connor. And so that'll be super fun. I kind of accidentally got myself involved with it, but I think it's the universe just paving the way.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm really excited to host these directors roundtables. Thank you so much for helping us kick it off. We are going to host many more of these, hopefully in the future, and you are more than all welcome to come back on. Thank you, everyone. This is Forge Theater Labs, and I'm Josh Hsu.
This episode was hosted by Joshua N Hsu with post-production by Sam Rapaport.